Okay, we're going to be talking about parallel and perpendicular lines. Parallel lines are lines that extend infinitely but never cross. So if you look at this example here, these two lines, the arrows say that they're extending on past what we just drew infinitely, and they will never cross. Some examples of parallel lines in the real world: if you look on the floor and you have tiles, those are usually parallel to each other, the lines on them. The double yellow line on the roads are also parallel. They extend on and never cross. Think about parallel lines that you can find around you right now. Look around the room, identify any parallel lines you can find. Alright, perpendicular lines meet at right angles. Perpendicular lines have opposite sign reciprocal slope. So, for example, if one line has slope 2/3, then the perpendicular line slope would be opposite sign. So 2/3 is positive, so the reciprocal is going to be the opposite sign, which is negative. And reciprocal means we take our fraction and we turn it upside down. So instead of 2/3, we have 3/2. The 3 goes on top, the 2 goes on bottom. And then for parallel lines have same slope. That's pretty self-explanatory. If one line has slope 1/2, then the parallel line to that would also have the same slope. It would be 1/2. Alright, so let's look at what this looks like algebraically. It's asking us to find the slope of a parallel. So first thing, we gotta find a parallel, and then we have to find a perpendicular line to each of these lines given. Alright, so first we need to identify the slope. So we know these are in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. We know that our slope is the number next to the x. So we're going to identify our slope here. We're going to identify our slope there. So in the first one, we have slope 3/2. So we know that a parallel line slope would be the same. So the parallel line slope would be the same, 3/2. We should also do the same here. We'll just do it in the same row. So the slope for the second equation is -4. The parallel line slope is going to be -4. The perpendicular line slope would be the opposite reciprocal. So we'd have the opposite sign, and we're flipping the fraction. Same with this one here. Be careful. If we don't have a fraction, we can always write it as over 1, because dividing by 1 doesn't change the value. And then we're going to take the opposite sign, reciprocal, so it's going to be, instead of negative, it's going to be positive. And the reciprocal of 4 is 1/4. Alright, so pretty straightforward. Just make sure that in this case here, we change the -4 into -4/1 if we need to, so that we don't confuse ourselves and get something weird. Okay, so for this one, we're being given a line, but it's no longer in slope-intercept form. This is in standard form. And the junk thing about standard form is that we really don't know the slope just by looking at the equation. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to find the parallel slope and the perpendicular slope. But first, the first thing we need to do here is we need to solve for y. So usually it's only like a 2-step problem. We'll see how this one goes. So in order for us to solve for y, let's highlight the y. Alright, we're going to get rid of everything around it. So the first thing is we're going to do our addition and subtraction. So we're going to subtract our 7x from the left side. 7x minus 7x is 0. That's perfect. It moves out of the left side and goes to the right side. So we have 3y equals negative 7x plus 3. Next step, we're going to divide by 3 to get rid of it. So y equals, and even though we have a big fraction here, what we can do is separate it into two separate fractions. So negative 7x over 3, so negative 7 thirds x is the first part. And then the second part, 3 divided by 3 is 1. All right, but we're really only concerned with the slope here. So now part 2 is when we answer the parallel line slope would be the same as the slope of the line we just found, right? So that's negative 7 thirds. We know that because this is now in slope-intercept form. The perpendicular line then we know is the opposite sign reciprocal slope. So the opposite sign of negative 7 thirds would be positive, and the reciprocal would be 3/7. All right, so a little bit more work. We got to apply our algebra. Not very difficult, but same concept. We're finding the slope. We're saying that the parallel line slope is the same, and the perpendicular line slope is the opposite sign reciprocal. All right, so now they're giving us another equation, y equals negative 3x plus 4. It's asking us to find the equation of a line perpendicular that passes through this point, negative 8, 5. And also an equation of a line parallel that passes through the same point, negative 8, 5. All right, so here's the thing. We're going to find the slope. We're going to identify the slope, which is easy. It's in slope-intercept form, so the slope is going to be negative 3 for the line that we're given. Now the second part, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with this form, but we're going to use the point slope form of an equation to write the equation that passes through these lines. So anytime we're given a point, right, we're given the points here, negative 8, 5, and we know the slope, then point slope form is the easiest way to go. So we go y minus y1, y sub 1, equals m. Remember, m represents the slope, x minus x1. All right, so the thing to remember here is that when we substitute, y1 represents the y from our point, x1 represents the x from our point, and m is the slope. So we're really only plugging stuff in there and simplifying. So let's see how this all works out. So let's do the parallel. So remember, y minus y1. So y minus the y from our line, from our point, I should say, is 5. So y minus 5 equals, well, the parallel slope is going to be the same, so that's going to be negative 3x minus negative 8. Right, our x is negative 8. So I guess we could leave it like that. I'm not sure if Alex will accept that, but because we have double negative here, minus negative, let's just clean that up a little bit and say that's plus. So y minus 5 equals negative 3, parentheses, x plus 8. Now, the nice thing about using point slope form is because we're using the same point, it's going to look the same. It's just that our slope's going to be negative or opposite reciprocal. So it's going to look exactly the same, y minus 5, because our y is 5 from our point. We're going to change the sign to positive. We're going to reciprocate 3 to get 1/3. But everything else in the equation looks exactly the same. So you're going to input this. For perpendicular, you're gonna input this. For parallel, and everything should be good. Okay, last example here. We're being given 3 different lines, and for each of the lines, we're given 2 points. So what it's asking us to do really is we're trying to find the slopes of each of these lines, and we're going to compare the lines and say if they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither in relation to each other. So the first thing we're going to do is find the slopes. Remember, you can label your points. X1, Y1, X2, Y2, so that it's easier to fill in the, let's put it up here, the slope formula, Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. All right, so for the first line, it's gonna be 4 minus -8 over -1 minus -5, which is 12 over 4, which is 3. So the first line slope is 3. Now we do the second one. 7 minus 1 over 2 minus 0. And that would be 6 over 2, which is also 3. And then the last one, -3 minus 7 over -6 minus 6. So that's going to be -10. Oops. Minus -7. Sorry, I did that wrong. I forgot a sign. Be careful. Minus, the 7 is negative. Alright, so that's going to be actually -3 plus 7 would be 4 over -12, which is -1/3. -1/3. Okay, so if we're looking for parallel lines, which lines have the same slope? That would be lines 1 and 2. Which lines are perpendicular? 1 is perpendicular to 3. And also 2 and 3 are perpendicular. And which ones are neither parallel nor perpendicular to each other? And that would be none of them. Right? They're all either parallel or perpendicular to each other. Alright, that's it. I know it's a lot of notes today. Make sure you take them down. Make sure you have any questions, you write them down and then bring them to class on next class. We can talk about them and do more examples and help you through your work if you need to. All right, good job today.